okay with it, just know we are going to be recording this. And as we begin, we want to make sure we properly welcome everyone. Again, hello, good afternoon, good morning, from wherever you are. My name is Carla Simmons, and I am the Executive Director of the KLS Legacy Foundation. We are so beyond excited to have you. With us is, of course, myself, my father, Professor Emeritus Kendall L. Simmons Sr., Dr. Alfonso Cobb, and a host of our guest speakers. So we're going to go ahead and go through what we can expect today. We are happy to have you all ask questions, give us some feedback. We want to make sure we encourage when you do so, go ahead and stay mute and just ask your questions and put your commentary in the chat. I will be, of course, fielding the chat. So if I can help you all at any time and and answer any questions, I will do so as soon as I can. But we will also have time a little later on during this series to go ahead and answer those questions during a Q&A. So a little, of course, etiquette. We ask that everyone stays mute because we don't want to have too many folks talking at once. We want to make sure that we have an opportunity to hear and listen to everything that everyone has to say. We, of course, are looking at the run of show. So what we have today, as I'm obviously giving you our current welcome, we, of course, are going to go through a little brief history of the KLS Legacy Foundation and a little backstory, as well as a special greeting from one of our guests, as well as introductions and leading off from our moderator, Dr. Cobb. We, of course, will go into our panel discussion following that. And, of course, as I mentioned, have an opportunity for some question and answer at the end. If you have, of course, anything that you need to discuss urgently or feel free to circle back with, feel free to comment or contact us, as our contact information is here on the right side of your screen. And you can feel free to reach out to us. And we hopefully encourage you to also follow us on our YouTube channel. So as our series progresses, you can keep up and keep tabs on us. And we welcome that opportunity. So as I mentioned, we're going to go ahead and move over to our brief clip of our introduction and give a little bit of a welcome here.
Hello, welcome and thank you for your interest in our KLS Legacy Foundation's Financial Literacy Series. I'm Kendall Simmons Sr., and I am Professor Emeritus in the Leventhal School of Accounting and the Marshall School of Business at the University of Southern California. Our series will be offered in a virtual platform where speakers use financial literacy technical tips and other tools to enhance your understanding of effective decision-making. You will hear from professionals, including Dr. Alfonso Cobb, who is a recent graduate of a doctoral program at the University of Southern California. Several other professionals will share their knowledge and their respective specializations. We are very grateful for the willingness of these speakers to contribute to our efforts to make a difference in our communities. Remember, the earlier you learn the basics of how money works, the more confident and successful you will be with your finances. It's never too late to start learning, but it does pay to have a head start. The first steps in the world of money begin with education. That is what our financial literacy series offers. Our target audience includes folks with varied backgrounds, such as yours. We believe that you will find this financial literacy series an informative and rewarding experience. Finally, please know that the success of our foundation depends very much on your support. So please click the link below to subscribe to our channel and follow us on social media. Enjoy your time with us.
Thank you, Dad. We all really appreciate such a wonderful and warm welcome. We hope, again, that you will follow us on our respective social media platforms. So if you are a Facebook user, that definitely applies there. If you are an Instagram user, I believe we have one coming. One of our more popular, of course, is also LinkedIn. So we want to make sure that we encourage you all to follow us on LinkedIn and connect with us, as that is a wonderful professional platform to stay up to date on what we're up to. And then, of course, as Dad mentioned, making sure that you follow us on our YouTube channel, because as you may have already seen, Dr. Cobb is offering what we call our 2-minute tidbits or Simmons snippets of some basic tips in finance and accounting. And so how you can learn and keep up and ask questions and fielding various things that you might have not thought of, or just that was a challenge to you. So we welcome you in that opportunity. As I mentioned, we have a very special guest who wanted to make sure that he gave us a proper welcome and introduction. So we'll make sure we share that with you now.
Hello, I'm Bill Holder, Dean of the USC Leventhal School of Accounting. I speak to you today on behalf of the KLS Foundation, which was founded by my former Leventhal colleague, Professor Emeritus Kim Simmons. The foundation is offering an exceptional financial literacy program for USC students. Given the complex world in which we all live, I enthusiastically encourage you to attend this program and learn vital information about money management, retirement planning, and building wealth. You will hear from successful USC alums and current USC faculty members about concepts and practices designed to help you attain and sustain financial security throughout your life. Best wishes and fight on.
That last part could not have been more poignant, as we are coming into rivalry weekend tomorrow. And we hopefully will beat the Bruins. But of course, this is definitely the USC support that we always love and encourage. So thank you, Dean Holder, for that very special tribute and commentary. We appreciate you. I want to go ahead and move over to our next, oops, I think I played them already. I want to go ahead and move over to introductions of our moderator. Many of you have already sent in some of your questions or some areas that you may not be quite familiar with or comfortable with and want to learn more about or get a little bit more insight about. And we are so excited to address those in the formats that we have available and those to come. To help us do that is one, as we already mentioned, one of our alumni, Dr. Alfonso Cobb, who comes to us he's a certified professional business coach. And he, of course, is an alum, as I mentioned, having his EDD as recent. And we are so very excited and congratulate him on such a tremendous accomplishment. Some things about him, of course, he is a veteran in financial services, and he is, after retiring from 37 years, the former vice president and regional sales manager at Charles Schwab. He was a vice president and national sales manager at Bank of Montreal. He was the vice president and branch leader and vice president in diversity and inclusion at Fidelity Investments, as well as officially having been sponsored corporate thoughts leader with global D&I office in senior management. We are just overwhelmed and overjoyed with this gentleman's history, background, and just the fact that he is not just a Trojan, but a Trojan who wants to make sure he gives back to his community members and current students and alum. So that is one thing that is an honor and a privilege for us to have. So don't let me take all of that time talking to you about Dr. Cobb when we have the opportunity to hear from him ourselves. So I will, of course, now be a mute person, but I will be in the chat manning your questions. But at this moment, I would like to very, very pleasantly turn the time over to Dr. Alfonso Cobb.
Thank you so much, Carla, and thank you, Professor Simmons. And good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's KLS Legacy Foundation Virtual Financial Literacy Lunch and Learn session today. Again, my name is Dr. Alfonso Cobb, and I will moderate today's session. During our time today, we will discuss the importance of setting financial goals. Now, research has shown that setting financial goals is critical to ensuring that we go through the various stages of our life and we're able to successfully maneuver through both the planned and unplanned economic transitions and challenges that we all may face during our lifetimes. So as we go through life having well-defined financial plans, it can help us to effectively navigate towards our desired outcomes. However, without setting clear financial goals for the future, it's similar to us being a ship adrift at sea with no sails and without a known destination. And so I am so thankful that Professor Simmons and Ms. Carla Simmons has allowed us to share our perspectives today and in the series in the future relative to financial literacy. I would like to now introduce our esteemed panelists who will share their experience and advice regarding the very important topic of setting financial goals. First, Latasha Miller is our Regional Client Service Director and Head of Banking at JP Morgan Chase Advisors. Then Brittany Williams, welcome, is a Regional Manager of Business Development at Mariner Wealth Advisors. And finally, Dr. Joseph Stroud, my good friend, who is also the owner and partner at BT84 Commercial Capital and Business Solutions, LLC. Thank you all so much for joining us during today's Lunch and Learn. We will begin by really gaining your perspectives on some top questions that have been posed by our audiences in previous sessions relative to this topic specifically. Then we will address, as Carla mentioned, any live questions from the audience, and audience members, please use the chat, as Carla mentioned, to ask any additional questions relative to anything that the panelists are sharing today and any other question that you'd like to have answers to. And so our first question is, why is it important to set financial goals? And Latasha, we'll start with you.
So I think that there's a lot of reasons why it's important to set financial goals, but ultimately, I think the majority of us here, and I won't say everyone falls into this vein, but I think the majority of us here have a desire, just like in the name of KLS, to leave a legacy behind. And I think it's very difficult to do that if you don't keep yourself in check. It's easy to get comfortable and, you go on vacation and you spend and you go out with your family and you spend. And if you don't have goals in place, it'll get away from you. And then that legacy that we all want to have in place for ourselves, for our children, will get away from us. So I would say that would be the initial reason why I think it's important. There are a number of others, but I don't want to steal everything from Joe and Brittany. So I'll start there. And then if there's a couple of things in my mind that they don't touch upon, I'll come back.
Okay, great. Well said. Brittany, your thoughts?
Absolutely. I think for me, it's all about being intentional. If we don't set goals, then what we don't work out, we don't achieve and we don't get better. So those goals are really the foundation for us to improve as individuals first and foremost, and then to help our loved ones from an intergenerational wealth standpoint improve upon the backs of those that came before them. So it's a stepping stone. And as Latasha said, it allows us to stay in check with not only our intentions, but also seeing those through. We have to continuously have goals to measure our ability to track what we're doing and also course correct if need be to ensure that we are achieving what we desire. So it all comes back to intentionality for me.
Great. Love that. Love that. And Dr. Joe, would love to hear your perspective as well relative to why it's important to set financial goals.
Well, it's very important because planning is just an essential part of life in general. Okay, because we plan for weddings, we plan for vacations, and when our family members, and even ourselves, is going on to glory, we plan for funerals. So that's the first reason why it's just part of everyday life to be able to have a plan in place in any scenario. That's number one. And number two, and most important, anything you plan for, guess what you need, guys? It's this thing called money. Okay, so being able to plan for your everyday life activities and being able to be successful with it, you need a plan to back those activities up in general and support those plans and goals, and be able to not only be successful with your planning, but being able to respect money. Because I tell you what, people always talking about when you stare them wrong, or they think a certain way, they being disrespectful. You being disrespectful to them. If you respect money, money will respect you, and you'll take care of everything you need going forward.
I love that. I love that. Respecting money, setting a foundation, being intentional. Very important key words. And Latasha, you had a final topic that you wanted to mention relative to this as well. Would love to hear your final thoughts on that.
Well, I think that Joe hit the nail on the head when he was talking about the fact that eventually, unfortunately, we're all going to have to put our family in the grave. And what you see day to day is people spend a lot of time and thoughts around retirement. They put a lot of time and thoughts and sometimes in regards to their passing. But to Brittany's point, they don't think about goals to live while we're here.
Right.
And while we're here every day, whether we're thinking about going to get a pizza or we want to go grab boba with friends, you have to be intentional about the plan to even be able to do that every single day. And so I think you have to think about not just, when you're in retirement, when you're not here anymore, but plan goals to live.
Love that. Love that. And as Simon Sinek has always stated, and I know we all are very familiar with that his famous book, Start With Why. I would now like to shift to the how, because the why is very important. You all stated, very, very, very essential reasons why it's important to set the goals. Now, shifting to the practicality of how, our second question is, what goes into practical financial goal setting based on your expertise, being experts in the industry? What are the practical steps or measures that go into financial goal setting? And Brittany, let's start with you on this one.
I'd love to take that one on. Thank you. I think for me, I like to think of it as with anything, we first have to admit that we have a problem, and that's that we need help. For a lot of us, it starts with research and education. I will say that people of color are less likely to have predecessors or family members that came before them that are in a great financial place to kind of lay out that red carpet on what that legacy should be. So we have to do a lot of inner work. We have to, one, understand we're not doing everything we could be doing. We have to research what does work historically, as well with current trends is going to be important for us. And then from there, we seek out like-minded individuals that can help us. So that likely is going to be a professional, whether that's someone, like Latasha at JP Morgan or Dr. Joe at Fidelity, or even our firm. It's to provide that education and that encouragement. That's the most critical piece. We have to feel encouraged and empowered to really make change. So for me, it all starts with research and then just empowerment.
Great. I love that. Dr. Joe, what are your thoughts relative to that question?
Couple of things. All right, those are some excellent points, Brittany. Couple things I like to add. You're gonna have to have a budget. As far as educating yourself, the simplest thing you can start out with is starting out with saving money. Okay, I'm retired Air Force. When me and my wife first got married, we lived off $40 every 2 weeks. Okay, our bills was paid. We had gas in our car. We can go to McDonald's at least once a week. We was happy and everything else. But I look back on it, we could at least save anywhere from $2 to $5 a pay period if we would stay focused on it. So saving in a budget is actually something that's actually warranted. And the second thing that's very important that's never talked about, you got to understand there's some unoccurring vices that's actually involved with you spending your money. It's well-known academic research that corporate America actually focuses on individuals between ages 18 and 35. Reason why? During that age group, those individuals are the most financial irresponsible people on this earth. And I need to raise my hand because I used to be one of them. Okay, so understanding that when corporate America is trying to get a piece of your money, you got to understand the ways that they actually do it through their marketing techniques. Years ago, back in the day when I was younger, in my early 20s, having a good time, going to the club, doing things what young people do. There was this song called Brass Monkey that came out by the Beastie Boys. Okay, back then, I'm from Monroe, Louisiana. Our poor people drinks was Mad Dog 2020 and Thunderbird. When that song came out, guess what we started drinking? Brass Monkey. Great,
Yes.
great song. It led to sales going forward.
Mm.
Today, in this digital world, we're being watched. I love to wear suits. I love to shop at Joe's as a bank. When I go to their website, just browse around for a couple seconds. Everywhere I go, it pops up on my phone, on my laptop. I
Mm.
see an advertising somewhere on my
Mhm.
Roku TV. The
Mhm.
reason why is they're testing my discipline.
Mm.
Okay, and seeing if I'm gonna go walk in there and buy that $1,000 suit now, or if I'm gonna save and put in my budget and go buy it 3 months ago for my Christmas present next month. So those are a couple of things you got to understand. Saving and the marketing campaigns that's and hitting us all the time. That's
Mhm.
actually trying to take a piece of our money going forward.
Mm. Love that. I love that. So saving, budgeting, research, analyzing where you are. Natasha, anything to add to the great answers that we just received from Brittany and Dr. Joe?
Yeah, a couple things. So just piggybacking off of where they were, one of the analogies I like to utilize for people is when you think about goal, you play basketball, watch basketball, ever been coached in basketball. One of the things that I used to hear my son's basketball coach say often was, it's important that when you are learning how to shoot a shot, you put your 2 feet side by side, look at the basket, focus on your shot, but you also have to make sure you're not distracted by what everyone else is doing, because then you'll change what you've been taught. So when they teach you how to put the ball in the basket, if you take in too much from everyone else, you'll get off course and you'll change how you're doing things. So when you come up with a plan, when you get focused, you need to stay on track and not be distracted by what you see, by what's taking place. An example of that is we'll get a new job. That new job will give us an increase in salary. Before we had that job, we were doing just fine. We were on track, we were focused. And this new job comes in place, and now we change and we shift and we spend as if that new job is there. And an easy way to begin to save money is as new assets come into place, new jobs come into place, you continue on the successful track you were already on. New job, you continue as if you made the same income you made before. It's easy to do if you really can continue to focus on your shot and keep your feet in front of you and not pay attention to what's happening around everyone else, keeping up with the Joneses, as they say. So I think that's important. I think it's a tip that can be fairly easy to put in place if you really think about it.
Love that. So create a process and focus on that plan and stay consistent. Really, really, really love that. And so that really shifts me into the third question that's been asked by the audience over the years, and that is, well, what are the benefits of setting financial goals? So we talked about the why it's important, how you should do it from a practical standpoint. What are the benefits of it? Dr. Joe, we'll start with you on that one.
Well, the benefits is you'll have a roadmap towards your financial success, and as you actually plan for and setting those goals, and put some parameters around those goals. Once you get to that point, you can see where you at and where you need to be to either improve or check that goal off and move forward. For example, let's say that this time next year you want to save $10,000 a month.
Okay.
Okay, it's actually October 31st, you had 12,000, you hit your $10,000. Great job. Understand how you did it. Keep it going. But let's say that you only save $5,000. No problem. Understand the reason why you only got half your goal accomplished. There's things going on in this world. There's a potential economic downturn. Russia invaded Ukraine, gas prices went up, we're in an inflationary period. So as long as you understand the reason why that goal wasn't met, readjust those goals based on the parameters till you can actually hit that goal in the near future and then go on to the next goal. So it's act as a roadmap and a checkpoint for you as time progresses.
Okay. Love that. Roadmap to success, basically.
Yes, sir.
All right. Latasha, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I would say one of the leading causes of death these days is stress. And when you have financial goals in place and you are feeling very secure about them, the amount of stress that that thing reduces is substantial. It is substantial. There's nothing like when you can get up, you get out of bed, you have your things in place, but you're not concerned about how you're going to eat today, how you're going to pay that bill. And I don't know about anybody else on this panel, but I started off in the little bitty house with I think there are about 15 of us that live there. I don't know. I look at the house today, cannot imagine how we all fit in that little bitty house. But that was my reality as a little girl. And today, not to have that stress, my kids don't even know what it feels like. It in itself is why it's important to me to consistently pepper that into my kids so that they can have that stress, because I don't want my boys or my brand new little girl to know what that feels like, to have to think about what it's like to have to move money here and there just to make sure you have that bill paid.
I actually love that example. And you're right, stress reduction is key, and that is one of the key benefits of setting goals. It kind of reminded me of the house that I grew up in southern Georgia. It was actually smaller than this office that I'm in right now, and I tell my kids all the time, my bedroom growing up was a bed behind a piano. It's because my sister played piano for church, and my bedroom was actually a bed behind the piano. So I definitely agree with you and see that point. Brittany, what are your thoughts in terms of the benefits of setting financial goals?
Yeah, I think it plays to our strengths, right? People of color are intrinsically competitive. We've had to compete for food, just standing within the culture. We've always been competitive against our Anglo counterparts to prove that we are just as intelligent, just as capable. So why not take that a step further and apply it to something like finance? For me, it's about, do you want to control your money, or do you want your money to control you? When you are in control of that money, you get to decide how it's spent, how it's saved, how it's leveraged. When it's in control of you, you're constantly having to work harder, pick up second jobs, take time away from family and loved ones, miss out on experiences. You get into this debt cycle. There's so many negative connotations that come with it if the money is the tail of the dog instead of you controlling that tail. So if we, and to me, it all comes back to simplify it, slow down, and understand, to Dr. Joe's point, miss out on simple things now, like that suit, so that 10 years from now, you can retire, or you can have that second home, that rental property, whatever it is, you can graduate debt free. Those small monuments are no easy feat, and we need to celebrate them and make them a priority.
Love that answer, and love the answers from all of you. And so, helping us to control our money as opposed to having our money control us, right? Especially in our older years, reducing stress, using it as a roadmap to where we want to be, so we can be in charge of reaching our desired outcomes. Love that. And so, shifting to the next question. So now that we've talked about, why it's important and what are some of the practical steps in setting goals and what are some of the benefits, I would love for you all to share with the audience, what should financial goals look like? What are some of the components that, as industry experts, you would recommend that they set, and how should their goals look when creating their plans? And let's see, I would say, Latasha, let's start with you again on this question, number 4.
I think there's a number of different ways that it can look. I would say one of the things that with this current housing environment that we're all in, when I was talking about that little house that I grew up in, I think it's important that we think about how real estate really plays a role into that. Whether it's your own home that you reside in, but we all know that generational wealth, a lot of wealth for folks of color start with your home if you do it right. So making sure that you're thinking about, where are you putting your money? Some people don't like the idea of responsibility of having to take care of a property, which is perfectly okay. But that's where you can think about how can you invest in a property somewhere else that you could potentially live in, rent out another piece, have a property manager. But I think it's super important to have that as part of your portfolio. I'll let Joe talk about the investing stock piece because I know that's his passion. But one of the things that I did, just using myself as an example, as I sent my kids off to school, I bought each of them a duplex. It takes care of where they live today and allows them to bring in extra income right next door at the same time. And I bought it before. I said, you got to let me know when you're a freshman where you want to go to college. We got to figure this thing out because I'm going to buy your property now for you guys for later. And it has allowed each of my oldest son, my oldest 2 boys are 22 and 21. And already they've been able to bring in income and not have to be concerned about where they reside and have the launch for what's going to be the beginnings of their financial legacy.
Excellent. Excellent. Love that story. Love that story. Dr. Joe, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's got to be personal, okay? Because everybody have different tastes, different strategies, and different goals, okay? It's got to be unique to that individual goal. For example, full disclosure, I've been knowing Tosh for about 20 years. Love her to death, okay? At least once a month, Latasha's gonna post something that she cooked. All right, this woman can burn. She's a gourmet. She's a culinary expert. I can't cook worth a darn. All right, she knows this. All right, how many times when it's time for me to bring something to the table, me and Latasha and her mom or anybody else gonna go out to dinner, and I cook with my credit card and my debit card. Okay, I'm gonna feed her a different way that she'll feed me. That's just our relationship. Okay. So in that instance, if somebody is actually trying to sell Millhouse versus Latasha House, for Latasha, that kitchen better look good. It got to be set up a certain way. It have to have certain amenities, certain things, so she can go in and work her magic. For me, as long as that refrigerator keep my sweet tea cold and my bottled water cold, I'm fine. Okay. Same thing with your finances and personalize it. As Latasha mentioned about her kids and where they're in life. Where I'm at in life, I got my own business. Me and my wife had done a great job saving. To me, it's about making sure my grandkids are set up for success. And one of my primary personal goal is I got a 13-year-old grandson. I have a PhD in finance. His father, Joe Jr., is continuing his master's degree. This kid is smarter than both of us combined at 13. He blows us away. Okay, he is. My goal for him to make sure he getting any school he chooses for now, because that's where I'm at in the stage of my life. I got this brilliant, intelligent grandson who has a skill set. It's not my responsibility to make sure he's taken care of, but I'm in position to do it, to pass this on so he can take care of his grandkids going forward.
I love that. Invest based on your unique goals.
Unique goals, yes.
Unique goals. And Brittany, what are your thoughts?
I think for me, it comes back to being specific and giving yourself a deadline. So I'll speak to the target audience that I'm passionate about, and that is individuals that are still in debt. They're still trying to acquire that level of affluency and wealth. That's where my passion lies, to educate them and make them feel more empowered, that eventually you will get where you want to be. Sometimes we talk about things that were not really realistic for them, or they don't know how to achieve it. So I want to take a step back and say, maybe it just starts with, I have $20,000 in debt and I don't know how to chip away at this. For me, we'll be specific. What I mean by specific is give yourself a timeline. I want that 20,000 to be down by $5,000 before next Christmas. You've identified a deadline for yourself. You specified a monthly amount that you feel is comfortable for you to take from your monthly budget, and you're applying to it. When we do that, going back to my earlier comment, we're competitive. So we're going to try to beat that. If I just say, I really want to eliminate my debt, Al, that would be great if I could just have less debt. We're not really doing anything. We're not moving the needle because we're just throwing things, spaghetti at the wall, so to speak. So take a step back and be specific and hold yourself accountable and say, this is how I'm going to do it. $300 a month is going to go out of my entertainment and food budget, and it's going to go towards this debt. And by next Christmas, I will not have any. That's what it's about. It's about moving that needle for you, because that is the best feeling. So for anyone that's on the call, if you're not at that stage where you are debt free, nothing compares to that. And that goes back to Latasha's point, not having those worries. When you have debt and you owe people money, that's a huge level of stress. Let's eliminate that and let's sacrifice down to achieve it.
Right. Love that. Specific goals, time oriented, measurable, so that you can hold yourself accountable. Love that. And with that, Brittany, I want to stay with you as we switch to our next question. How would you recommend to the audience to choose the most appropriate financial strategies? And that's our question number 6. I'm at number 5.
First and foremost, it seems, easy enough, but don't invest in things you don't understand. When we start talking about this new metaverse and all these fun things and buying these homes that don't exist and they're just floating out there in space, if you don't understand it, it's not a good idea. That's how you get taken advantage of. So that goes back to education and research and making sure you have people in your corner from a finance, accounting standpoint to ensure that you're not falling into a trap. The other thing is that if it's not broke, don't fix it. So keep it simple. Simple is a good thing when it comes to developing that legacy and changing the path of your finances. So address debt, then focus on saving, and then start to look for ways to inject that free capital or that cash into the market. Stocks and bonds have gone a long way for several decades. We really don't have to get too sophisticated. We also need to factor in where we are. If we don't have a lot of spare capital, we can't take on a lot of losses. We want to be less risky. So that's where we may eliminate certain things and forego those for now. And then when they become more appropriate, we can interject them at that time. So keep it simple and make sure that you understand what you're investing in.
Great. Love that. Great advice. Simplicity and understanding relative to what you're investing in. Love that. Latasha, what are your thoughts on that question?
So Brittany hit the nail on the head for me. I think it's so uber important that you do your research. And I think that when you're doing your research, be thoughtful of what you consider research. Today, it's easy to look at social media and talk to your friends who are successful with this particular strategy and try to follow suit. What might work for them may not work for you. And everyone and everything you see is not correct information. So I think it's important that you're paying attention to the brand of where you're getting the information from, the firm where you're getting the information from, and not just sitting on Twitter and TikTok all day and getting your strategies from there. I'm not saying that there's not anything good that's out there in those spaces, but you got to be careful making sure that you're paying attention and doing your due diligence in that area. I think you also have to be realistic about the time that you have in these spaces. Sometimes you just don't have time to become the expert, and you need to, it's wise to invest in an expert. A lot of our employers have opportunities that are available to us that we need to take advantage of. They might have experts on deck, on hand. They may be utilizing some of the firms that we're associated with that actually provide those financial resources for us. And we just don't have the time on our own to invest in that time. And it's necessary that you have not only the desire, not only the skill, but you also have the time in place in order to to be good with some of these strategies. So you might need to just, take a little bit of money, put it to the side, invest in a financial professional, and do what you do best.
Yes. Love that. Focus on utilizing empirical research and data. I'm just fresh off that, so I totally agree with you. And work with experts, people who know what they're doing. Sort of avoid the social media at times when you're not getting expert advice. Love that. Dr. Joe, what are your thoughts on that question?
Well, first of all, who put this panel together? I think we should be up for an Oscar after today's session. Great information.
I'm going to nominate you for sure.
Couple things I just want to add on, and Brittany actually touched base on this. It's where you at in life. Okay. At Fidelity, there's a couple stories that just hit home to me. The first one, I remember taking a phone call from an African American male who worked 40 years at the post office. Okay. He lived in California. His daughter, he had $50 million in his account. His daughter graduated from law school at Harvard. His son had an MBA from Stanford. Okay. All right. Then I remember another call. I had this couple. One was a doctor, one was a lawyer. They both was in their field for 20 years. They both combined make about $2.53 million a year. They had about $500 in their savings account.
Wow.
Okay. You would think the post office worker will have $500 in his savings account, and the successful people have these dream opportunities that we was raised to be successful in this world will have $50 million available. The difference is their behaviors. The guy who had $50 million in his account, he lived way below his means. He bought land in the 70s, okay? And that actually catapulted him to where he was today. So we just talk about legacy building with him and making sure we actually pat him on the back, got his kids through school, what you got planned for your grandkids, your great-grandkids, and your great-great-grandkids. That was that conversation, because that's where he was at in his life. This couple, this successful couple, we had to start from scratch. We had to redesign a budget for them, make sure they actually understand savings, have set goals. So as Brittany stated, understand where you're at in your life is very, very important. This implement a strategy for each individual and personalized form. That's number one.
Right.
And number two, Latasha touched on this basically. You got to understand what influences your behavior. Okay. In academic research, it's well known that African American community, we do what our celebrities do. All right. If our celebrity drives a Maybach, have on a red bottom, guess what we want to do? We want to drive a Maybach, probably a 2015 Maybach, because it's about $25,000, but it's a Maybach, all right. And we want to have expensive attire. So that's very important. Where you getting this information from initially to help to actually influence your spending habits, your investment habits, your savings habits, is key to understand that upfront. Then seek the help, as Brittany mentioned, Latasha mentioned, to actually get you started and start the educating process eventually to get you to the end goal.
Wow. Very powerful story, Dr. Joe. Very powerful. Love that. In essence, it's not what you make.
Right.
It's what you save and invest and spend.
Yes, exactly.
Love that. And that story, I think, is a great bridge to our last question. And Dr. Joe, I have you start with this question, our last. How can financial advisors help in this regard relative to setting financial goals?
It's essential because they're the ones that can actually set you up a plan, no matter where you're in your life. Where you're actually just starting out, you're 21 years old, you got your first job, you're in your 50s, you haven't saved, or even somebody like me who worked at Fidelity for 15 years and started my own business. Me personally, I'm always going to need a consultant financial advisor. The reason why is this, and you know this, Dr. Cobb, just because we got PhDs and doctorate degrees do not mean we know everything. We're smart enough
Correct.
to understand that. Now,
Right.
when I worked at Fidelity, and Latasha's right, I'm an expert on investing, in stocks and bonds. But with my current job as raising capital, a whole different territory. My eyeballs is not on the market like it used to be.
Yep.
Okay, I need an advisor just to make sure I'm staying on top of what's going on in the market, to make sure I'm on top of my plan and see what I need to do to adjust my plan during these turbulent times, these
Right.
inflationary times,
Right.
or make any other type of change to enhance it. So that's the financial advisor's job, and they are essential to get us started, to maintain where we at, and to get us to the finish line and increase and adjust our goals as time goes on.
Great. Love that. Advisors help us stay on track.
Yes. Yes.
Love that. Latasha, what are your thoughts on this final question?
Well, I think I touched upon it briefly before. I think that the three things that you need in order to be able to take it on by yourself is the will, the skill, and the time. And if you don't have all three of those, then you need to have somebody else's help. Like Joe said, right now I have the will, I have the skill, I don't have the time. I've got this newborn I have to keep quiet and who's always yelling. I got the other kids. I got, multiple, jobs. I've got businesses to run. I don't have time.
Right.
I don't have time. And before, when I had the time and I had the skill, I didn't have the will.
Yes.
So
yes.
it will vary, and you have different patterns in your life. And there are some times in our life when I worked in compliance a long time ago, I didn't have either of the three. Right. And that's okay. Right. So I think you have to be honest with yourself about what it is that you can do, and then utilize the help in the areas where you can.
Totally agree. Will, skill, and time. Totally agree with you and Dr. Joe. Just because I have my doctorate now, I do not have the will and the time anymore to manage my own. And I, have my own financial advisor as well to keep me on track. Totally agree. And Brittany, bring us home on this last question. What are your thoughts relative to this?
I think we're more inclined to listen to that financial advisor if we find the correct match for us. So find someone that's going to provide the level of education that you want. Some of us just say, listen, get it done. Don't care how it's done. Just make sure at the end, when I'm 90 years old, I'm not eating cat food. For others, they are going to want to make sure that they are a part of that decisions and they're a part of it and they understand what's going on and the intricacies of it. So it all starts with establishing that rapport, finding the right fit of an advisor. And if someone isn't able to explain the why to you, they're not a good fit. If someone is talking over your head or talking at you instead of to you, they're not a good fit. So it's important that we not only identify the right advisor for ourselves, but we share those resources for our loved ones too. This isn't, I'll use an example. How many times Latasha has it, oh, I really like that dress. Where'd you get it? We don't want to tell them. We don't want you to look like what we have on. We can't do that in the wealth management and financial space. Share that information because it could cost someone their future and their legacy if they go down a different path, just like these athletes. They don't have anyone in their ear directing them towards good, sound advice. So take a moment and be that steward of that information and be informed.
Great. Love that. Love that. Thank you so much for closing us out relative to the 6 questions that were posed by the audience from previous sessions. And so now let's open up the mic and open up the chat room. And Carla, I will rely on you to look for any questions that we might have from the audience as we wrap up today's session.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much to our panelists and to our speaker. You all just blew me away in so many different ways. And I'm laughing at myself a little bit because as we lined you all up in our panel discussion, I love how you all are actually touching on really 3 different phases in our lives. where we have Brittany, you're talking about something that I love when we discuss things like debt. A lot of our audience and a lot of our folks that we engage with here at the KLS Legacy Foundation are students. And so one of the things that we try to tackle and address before our students get a little too far back down into debt is how to prevent us from staying there. How do we make sure we're able to help them navigate and steer clear of that bad debt? Because when we first started the in-person financial literacy series, that was one of the first things that we had our credit unions discussing, was the differences between things like good debt versus bad debt, and how to recognize those and how to stay on top of it. So Brittany, I think what you said was really truly spot on, and I appreciated what you all said in that. But I'm laughing because our next phase in life was, of course, how we're developing and starting families. And Latasha, you are right there in the middle, spot on, with the young children and the teens. So how are you navigating and keeping all the balls in the air? And then also, how are you saying, well, wait, I have to now prioritize a little differently? Because before it was just the one person or the youngster who might be having to deal with how do I even talk about or approach debt versus how do I approach debt for all of us and this group that I am now bringing into this world. And Dr. Joe, I loved how you really truly addressed things like, how do I not just look out for me, but the generations coming after me? And so you all three of you, I did not do this on purpose. We did not line you up visually on purpose like this, but I think it's kind of poetic how you all went literally in each phase from left to right on our screen. And that's literally how you address things. So that was truly fortuitous on our part that we put you and we were partnered with you in this regard just that way. You all had some fantastic things, and I want to circle back just a quick second because Ms. Brittany, you actually addressed one of the questions that had come to me, and that was, how is it? What are the best practices, or how to identify that financial advisor that would be best for you? And I think you approached that beautifully, so thank you for that. And I'm hoping that that answered that audience person's question. If not, feel free to address again in the chat or potentially unmute if we have that moment. A few things that we wanted to make sure we highlighted, because you all hit on them very beautifully, were things like what I heard was spending power, and that was how we started. So really understanding and identifying and knowing that we, not just as a culture or as a society, but we the individuals have that spending and buying power that we don't even know we have. So really taking that moment and saying what we purchase is so important, and how we put necessarily our monies toward things that might deplete or depreciate over time. But our purchase power is so important because we're really trying to save for ourselves. And that's really what I heard in the beginning, which I loved. Miss Latasha, your approach with stress, I almost fell out of my chair because we are in those stressful times, not just from times past, but things have gotten a little bit more heightened with the inflation and with current times that we're living in, housing prices, et cetera. And there are various facets and stressors, because as students, the ones that we are looking at is we're talking about not just how we're approaching exams, but how are we making ourselves the best person we can be for that career? Are we choosing the right career? How are we navigating our exit strategies from school? So there's a multitude of stressors out there, and understanding how we're approaching those and navigating through those successfully is paramount. So I don't want that to go unnoticed, and that's very much appreciated. The last thing I think was prioritizing, was what I heard. Really how we are to work smarter, not harder. And I think a couple of you have made mention, but I wanted to call it out. And what I heard was passive money, how we can have passive money work for us, so we don't have to go into what I have heard called the John Henryisms in life. So we don't necessarily work ourselves into the ground, and we could never benefit from all of the work that we've put in over the years. So figuring out how we can get some passive money to work for us to build those wealth that we're now addressing, which I love, and I think we all can appreciate. And I think other than that, you all have been beyond fantastic, but I'm going to be quiet because I just ran my mouth, and I appreciate you all indulging me. But if there are additional questions, I want to make sure that I can mute. And if you want to raise your hand or put it in the chat or unmute and just ask your question one at a time, I think we'd be more than happy and welcome for that in our last final minutes.
Can I just go on? This is Ken Simmons. Everybody hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Wonderful.
Yes, sir.
Well, first of all, I want to take the time to thank all of you, taking the time from your very busy schedules to come and talk to us. Hopefully you'll agree, and I was going to make as a question, but I'll make the statement that of all the education processes that we offer at any level of education, this piece has been lacking. You know, we talk about many things, but if you were to go into an accounting classroom, a finance classroom, a biology classroom, you name it, the probability is fairly high. I'll put it nicely, 0. We don't discuss these things that I think are the weapons we should allow these youngsters to have as they progress through and navigate through this thing called life. So they graduate. I think it was you, Brittany, you mentioned the athlete. I don't remember who it was, to tell you the truth. And the challenges that athletes have. Well, you know, it's not just athletes, but you made a very good example of the athlete, because how do you tell a youngster who's come from a family of 5 or 6 children living in the same room, making, if you're lucky, $1,000 a year, and I've seen that, and all of a sudden they walk into this grand opportunity of millions of dollars, and they have no clue as to what to do with it. There's a famous basketball player, I won't mention his name, but he was able to spend $1 million in 2 days. 1 million, 2 days. And he finally admitted, I had no clue. I had this opportunity. You know, all of a sudden I walked into this great scenario of wealth. I felt like, you know, pig in a poke. Why not have fun? And he did. Pay the price later. So where I'm going with this is, I don't know if you can address this, but I'll put it out there anyway. Is there a level that you feel that all youngsters should be exposed to in order to better understand what's going on? When do we plant the seed? Is it as they're entering university as freshmen? Should we go all the way back to 7th or 8th grade to make sure they understand the significance? Because my thing is, you know, these youngsters and other ethnic groups, they're born into this. You know, that silver spoon is there. So they're hearing about financial planning. As soon as they're able to put some words together, they understand what a balance sheet is. They understand what it means to invest. Not always do we have that kind of understanding or exposure. What do you think?
Personally, I think it should start in starting in junior high school, intermediate school. By that time, you starting to understand, aware about certain styles, certain how much money people make, and be able to relate to it in a minute manner. I think that's the perfect age to start teaching financial literacy. In junior high school, intermediate school, all the way through high school. All right, to have that foundation going forward. Because as you mentioned, Professor Simmons, there are other communities, they're either born into this or they were educated about this at an early age. I remember I had a meeting with a friend of mine who's a finance professional at Pappadeaux. There's a New Orleans restaurant out here in the Dallas Fort Worth area, all throughout the South. And we was talking about the same subject. And we was at the bar, and he asked this African American bartender, "What you know about stocks?" I did not know. I don't know anything about stocks. Okay, found out she's from my hometown. Went to high school with my nephew. Okay, asked this Caucasian bartender, "What do she know about stocks?" And both these ladies are in their early 20s. She said, "I've been owning stocks since I was in the 8th grade. My grandfather bought me some Apple stock." Okay, so the earlier you can introduce it to the kids, community, to our culture, the more advanced we will be heading into our adulthood to be able to take this to the next level going forward.
I agree 100%. I think that 7th, 8th grade age is like the sweet spot, because they can actually regurgitate the information very well at that point. And I think it's, to your point, it's very important that we make sure that we are going to those communities where we grew up. Like you said, Joe, she is from your hometown. She doesn't know anything about stock. So I take it upon myself to go to those places where, I've been and where I know where there's a hole. And I believe much is given, much is required. So there's no way for me that I can be in this space with the knowledge that I have and just go, yeah, I'm hoping that they go to school and put it in 7th, 8th grade and they're able to get that information. I'm going to help go and make sure I'm bringing it to them. So these boys, girls clubs, upward bound programs that are in place, I think it's extremely important that we are tagging in and doing our part to bring this information to them.
Thank you. Anyone else needs to or wants to contribute to that? Because I think it's such a critical issue. And maybe I should say the reason I brought it up was because I had a discussion with our dean. And the real question was, well, should we offer a curriculum at the university level? And I thought it's a great idea, but which audience are we targeting? We have to be very specific in terms of, to your point, all of you actually, we should be targeting youngsters at a very early age. But when you talk about curriculum, there's certain avenues that I call prohibitive, and therefore youngsters may not get the exposure necessary to succeed. Should we always expect to have a youngster to attend a university like USC, where the tuition is just very high? Not a negative, but that's reality. Should we be more concerned with reaching a population that are not necessarily university bound, but still are needed this education? There was a study done, I think it was back in 2014, if I remember correctly, and they developed it. The survey developed a series of questions, and it was really testing folks to see if they truly understand the significance of financial education and terminology, assets, liabilities, and on and on. They gave that survey at different age levels: seniors, children, university, high school. And the question was there, and the results are that it was the youngsters who did poorly in terms of the results. Well, you'd expect that because they don't have enough education. But then we did a survey, they did a survey at different, how should I put it, wealth levels. I'll be general there. And you can pretty much guess that the poorer youngsters, students from poorer families, did not do well. So the message is very clear. There's a lack of education and exposure in that area. And he and I had a nice long discussion. I said, that's fine. I think it's wonderful to have that as a part of the program, financial literacy. But I'm more concerned with going to the community, identifying population, bringing them to campus, make sure they understand the significance of financial literacy. What's a checking account? What's a savings account? Why do you have to have insurance? Things that I think are not necessarily discussed at the dinner table in most households.
Yes.
That's why I thought I'd bring it up.
Yeah, as I alluded to earlier, it's about what programs or what platforms we viewing to get our information. In the African American community and the poor communities, we love entertainment. All right. Our entertainers educate us about financial literacy. The good thing about it, I must admit, these same entertainers have actually started talking about it. I remember, and God bless George Floyd. His death really triggered this. I heard T.I. I'm a big hip hop fan. I heard T.I. start talking about after his death about we should stop trying to worry about wearing Gucci and Versace. We need to start talking about buying real estate. So in our community, it's actually where the platforms we get our entertainment to feed our spirit, to get us through our day. It has started there, but this is corporate America. That's not going to make a lot of money. It's boring to talk about financial literacy to certain ethnic groups. Personally, I think we need to bring, and I'm working on this with some people, we need to bring private equity to these neighborhoods. Okay, because we can bring investors to these neighborhoods, start mentoring these business owners in these neighborhoods, how to manage their money, how to actually save their money, how to budget, how to invest, and put dollars behind that to help them grow. That's a start, and there's a the Black Wall Street uh, uh, is on and going right now. I've talked to several people in that arena as a capital raiser myself, so it's coming. It's a slow process, but I think once we get venture capitalists and also private equity come to these communities to help us finance business owners and educate these business owners and pass it on to the community. Eventually, I think that will help elevate this topic of financial literacy and help us elevate our ability to grow wealth individually.
I
I
think
am
one of the
loving
things
these
you said
answers.
too, Doc, is you said it's boring. And I think that is where one of the things that we need to fix, because it shouldn't be boring. It's important. And I think I think about the fact my little girls and they're watching Gracie's Corner half the day. And when I play it, she's into it. If you get it where it's not boring, the younger you can really start peppering this into their spirit. And I think that what you just said is one of the pieces what we have to find the correction point is where it's not boring, because it's really not boring. I think most of us who are in this space actually find it very interesting and fulfilling in spaces. And it's something, Brittany said earlier, we're very competitive. And so if you find ways to make it competitive where the kids can compete and it's not boring, I think that's where you get the win. I think that's why that 6th, 7th, 8th grade
Right.
is such a good sweet spot, because that's when that competition really starts to rise and they really like to have fun. You just got to make it fun for them, competitive and not boring.
I would echo that, because I'm reminded of it was either, it could have been 5th, 6th, 7th grade in math class. The teacher, we had a play portfolio. I mean, there was no money, but I'm reminded of how much fun I had. Now, I like math, and I think that, that I agree with you, Latasha. And then just trying to find, how this can be provided. And I think that's where, like, certainly the investment firms can help. And then, nowadays there's like a prize or something, or, you give them $100 or whatever it is, or whatever to capture their interest. I think that's correct. And like for us at the KLS Legacy Foundation, we're involved in education. So that's, I think would be our area, that we can impact. And I think even, if it's enough of a need, like at USC, do you stick it in a class somewhere, or to make it just a component to see that these students get some of this education, and then making available for people who want to go further or really need a lot more help, because X number of students are going to be good at this. But I think I also love what somebody said earlier, that in investing and finances, the will, the skill, and the time, and then I think also the planning and the discipline. Because I've just repeated it, like with I've wasted money on, because I want to make a lot of money on something. I did it 30 years ago, and I just did it within the last couple of years with electric vehicle stuff.
Mhm.
So we just need drilled into us, no matter how smart, or if we're an accountant like I am, we're susceptible to this.
I'm going to interject for just a moment because you all are giving me life in this discussion. I know we have a couple of waiting in the wings. And Steve, I want to press pause for a second to recognize you. Steve Kennedy, who is on our board, a part of the KLS Legacy Foundation. So definitely appreciate your insight there. I know we have one hand raised on the side, and while he's asking his question, we're going to transition slides here so that way we have one additional. So there's going to be two things going on. So as you're hearing this person's question, we'll also be having a change in the screen. So right now, I believe we have Kendall II, who had a question. He has his hand raised. So Kendall, go ahead.
Yeah, no, thank you, Carla. It's part question, part comment, and appreciate everyone's time and thoughts. Recently I was doing a similar study where we're focusing on the LAUSD, which is the second largest unified school district in the country, where you're seeing nearly 600,000 students impacted, overwhelmingly people of color. 73% of that student body is Hispanic, 11% African American, where there is a disproportionate amount of those students lacking early childhood education, and we're seeing a significant reduction in enrollment. Two of the things that are impacted with a reduction in enrollment in early childhood education is the lack of resources, and then trickle on or domino effect, where not having the resources, not having the information readily available, these students are graduating at a significant disadvantage. So you're seeing lower college enrollment, lower work-life balance, lower resources, and a generational impact. And I think it's been brought up in different contexts throughout the discussion today of how do we go from the people impacted and identifying where we can procure resources to help those most in need. I think banks, financial institutions, and the broader community at large can help funnel funds through to these communities. And by, I think it's an old biblical proverb, teaching a man how to fish. So therefore, empowering these students with the early academic resources or just financial literacy specifically, helping them open up a bank account. If the financial institutions that were referenced, whether it's private equity or banks, can contribute something as small as $25 as a seed round for these students, in teaching them how to set up a checking account, set up a savings account, how to have their dollars start to work for them as they matriculate through academics, I think that would be a great start, because what we don't want to see is students somehow even coming into money and not knowing what to do with it. So it's a two-part, where I know we have a brand new superintendent for the LAUSD, and he's putting up his hand saying we're one of, fifth largest, sixth largest economy in the world, and yet we have some of the lowest graduation rates and are seeing a generational impact that was more than anything exacerbated by the pandemic. And so enrollment has continued to drop, and as enrollment drops, the government is not able to offer as much in terms of funding for the entire school system. So I think a great exercise would be to identify a specific community. I would propose looking at just LAUSD as it's in the backyard, and as the KLS organization works to educate youth, maybe we focus on a cohort, whether it's the K through 3, K through 6. I heard the 6th through 8th grade group. I think that would be a critical area to focus on. I'll pause there.
Thank you so much for that, Kendall. You're absolutely right. I think there's going to be a few folks that are going to have some commentary on and feedback on that, because you're spot on with aligning and meeting right exactly where it seems the discussion has taken us. So maybe from what everyone seems to be saying, addressing the financial literacy is key, but when is best practices as far as starting and keeping? I think what we haven't circled back to is how to keep that engagement, because we're talking about youth, and I think I don't want to overlook the term boring, because I think that was one of the most important words that we've heard when we talk about the sweet spot of getting people interested. So it seems like one of our tasks that we're going to be moving forward addressing is how do we keep people engaged? How do we keep our youngsters engaged? What are some of those best practices? And before we want to go too far, and I see folks are chiming in saying you're spot on, Kendall. So thank you for that. I know Dr. Cobb might be able to address exactly some of that with what he has looking like our SMART goals. So I want to press pause for a second, Dr. Cobb, if you want to go ahead and address this.
Sure, absolutely. And I just love the discussion. And, the majority of my dissertation talked about everything we were just reviewing in our discussion relative to what areas we should focus on. And again, not to go too deep into it right now, because it really, I think, is setting up a lot of great subject matter for our 2023 Lunch and Learn virtual programs that we want to participate in. And but just to address Professor Simmons' question, an analogy that I would personally recommend is that the financial industry should mimic what the dentistry industry has done over the last 50 years. You're probably saying, how is there a correlation between dentistry and financial education? We all have gone to the dentist starting at a very early age. We have processes that we have to follow when we are 10 and 15 and 20 and 25 and 30 and 40 and 50. I'm almost 60 years old and I still go to the dentist every 6 months, and there are things I have to do. That's similar to what we have to do in terms of financial education. Various stages, various things we have to work on, as Dr. Kennedy just stated. And we have a long way to go, but I think that is one industry that we could mimic in order to ensure that we increase the financial literacy efficacy of everybody in the country, and particularly those underserved groups. So just my thoughts. And again, wrote a dissertation on that. I can talk about that for hours, but we don't have hours. We just have a few minutes to wrap this thing up. But I wanted to thank Ms. Miller and Ms. Williams and Dr. Stroud for guiding us through this extremely important topic. Your advice and guidance is priceless. And even though, I've been in the financial services business myself for over 30 years, I've learned a lot today from your recommendations. So in summary, I'd like to share a few takeaways for the audience. And so in a 2012 article titled Setting Goals That Empower Your Financial Future, published by the Certified Financial Planning Board of Standards, they shared 5 key strategies for setting successful financial goals, which I'd like to share with you, which are consistent with everything that we heard from Brittany, Latasha, and Dr. Joe. Number 1 is to create goals that are motivational, but also realistic. Setting goals that are impractical and out of reach have their consequences, and they can keep you stuck in exactly where you are. And so creating that roadmap, that process, as Dr. Joe was saying. The second stage or strategy is to plan goals for the short term and the long term, without tackling the immediate problems such as debt and failure to save, as Brittany mentioned. You will never get a chance in realizing your long-term financial vision. The third strategy is to establish priorities, as Latasha so eloquently stated. Each of our goals may be realistic on their own, but the decision needs to be made at the onset of your planning to which is more important to you. Similar to the stories that she shared about, buying duplexes for children so they can have someone to live in college, but also generate some income at the same time. 4, be recognizing the importance of time. It's a common mistake, as all the panelists mentioned, that to specify a future goal in terms of the day's dollars, but not specifying the right goal and realizing that time really passes fast. We have to save, we have to invest over time, and not fall into that same trap as the lawyer and the doctor fell into, as explained by Dr. Joe, making $2 million a year, but only having a little bit less than $500,000 saved over a 20-year period. And 5, And final, be flexible. You know, new opportunities, unforeseen personal circumstances, violations, or volatility in markets like we've seen this year will occur. And they're just part of the financial journey. And that's the importance of having that plan, as all the panelists mentioned, that will allow us to go through that roadmap to get where we want to go from our financial outcomes. And so, again, thank the panelists for your expertise, your recommendations, and as we see at the far right of the screen, it is all wrapped around making sure that you create SMART goals that are specific, measurable, adjustable, realistic, and time-oriented. And so, Carla, I'll turn it back over to you because I know that we are pretty much at time. Thank you so much for allowing us to be a part of this, and I'm really looking forward to participating in similar events throughout 2020.
Much appreciated. Thank you so much. I'm loving seeing the applause.
Very well done. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Now, I want to make sure, you know, as Dr. Cobb has very graciously shared those SMART goals, because I think it's always important, and I don't know that anyone would disagree, having some of those tangibles. So we hope folks are able to at least take a screenshot of what he has shared, but also the invaluable, really, advice, guidance, resources, and insights that our panelists have shared. We definitely could not appreciate you more, and we definitely invite you to return with us, hint, hint, wink, wink, as the years roll through, because we definitely, we realize that we're just at the tip of the iceberg with not just our immediate audience, but audiences as we branch out and broaden that net. So we are encouraging of everyone to stick with us, even as you move forward in your respective plans. As we already realize, you know, we're going through our different phases, and as we are, our students, our alumni, our participants, we all will go ahead and change gears in our different phases. But we hope you stick with us, and we invite you and we encourage you to share your feedback. What will actually happen is we will be sharing a survey, as we see, our post-event survey. So not only will you have a survey, you will also have the link in for the YouTube channel, so you can continue to follow along with us. Again, as you see on the right hand of your screen, the different ways that you can keep in touch with us. If you want to use the old traditional U.S. Postal Service, we love that. We always love receiving mail, but our P.O. Box address is here. Our email as well as our website. And you can go ahead and follow us on social media. Again, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram is coming because I know everybody wants to get an @ but also our YouTube channel. So that's our consistent way of going ahead and sharing as many of our tips, tricks, and just insight and knowledge. So we, again, thank you. We thank our moderator, Dr. Cobb. We thank all three of our panelists who were fantastic in all that you do and all that you've contributed. We want to give you back the rest of your Friday and want to wish you all a wonderful health and safe holiday season and new year. Feel free to contact us, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.
Bye on.